Hi, everyone. Welcome to the PoliticAL update with me, Alexandra Acker-Lyons. I pay attention to the political news so you don't have to. This is the advice I give my millionaire clients, and you get it for free. It is Friday, August 14th. Hello from my sister's apartment in hot and muggy Washington, D.C. Wanted to let you know I'm going to be publishing a new Where to Give Now memo in the next couple of days, so watch this space, as the kids say. I publish it on my website, aladvising.com, and also on my Substack. Okay, a lot of news. Wisconsin primaries are over. David Crowley eked out a win over Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong. This race saw so many twists and turns. So he was in the race. He dropped out of the race when it looked like Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez was going to win. Then she had to drop out. Crowley got back in. Watching this count come in on Tuesday night was hilarious because people didn't know if this race might come down to the absentee ballots and early votes that were cast when Crowley had dropped out, and if people in especially his home base in Milwaukee were voting for him. It was a very exciting election night. My friend Sarah Godlewski also won the uncontested race for lieutenant governor. Rebecca Cook won the somewhat contested primary in Wisconsin 3. So overall, just a great night for Wisconsin. And feel really good about our ability to potentially get a trifecta in Wisconsin now. Republicans have a trifecta. Republicans control both chambers of the legislature. We have a Democratic governor. We have the ability to get a Democratic trifecta, and that would be huge in a state that just 2 years ago had the most gerrymandered maps in the country. Elections matter. In Minnesota, the wonderful Peggy Flanagan won the Senate race there. Mike Lindell lost. Ha ha, ha ha. And he didn't even believe polls in his own race. Took him a minute to concede. He was like, well, all the votes haven't been counted. How can I possibly concede? So full of it. This is now our new normal. In both states, Democrats came together very quickly, just like in Michigan, to show how unity is done. And I'm just really, really proud of all of those candidates. Losing an election is not easy. And go team. Also, Ohio 7 has now been moved to a toss-up because the evil Max Miller did not drop out. And so go give to Brian Poindexter because we can win that race. Okay, want to spend a minute talking about polling. I have done looked at a lot of polls in my life, have done some polling related consulting. It is really hard to model a primary electorate. So what you're doing, so we know that it's like harder to get voters to answer a poll. It tends to be higher educated voters, older, whiter, not representative of the electorate in most places. So first, it's hard to get people to even answer the poll. We know that. The other piece of this is that you have to say, I think the electorate is going to be 43% college educated, 23% African American. You have to come up with what a likely voter is. In a primary, that's really hard. This is also why some of the polling has been so off for several cycles now, because like in 2018, we didn't know if a bunch of Trump voters were going to vote in a midterm election. So G. Elliott Morris, whose newsletter Substack Strength in Numbers is fantastic, has calculated that Senate and governor primary election polls are off by 13 points on average and more than 20 points about 10% of the time. I will put that Substack in the notes. So, I say this all the time, margin of error is real. It's a real thing. Polls are a snapshot in time. It looks like pollsters in both Michigan and Wisconsin overestimated youth turnout. Note that it is summer, and in particular, college students who are more likely to vote than non-college students were not on campus, so harder for them to vote. And therefore overestimated support for the primary candidates, the more progressive candidates in the primary. So that's, what we think happened. I am calling this the YOLO election, where it's kind of like, well, I don't know. I think if a poll is within 5 to 7 points, it's in play. And beyond that, we don't really know anything. Also, a whole bunch of undecided voters decided really late who they were going to vote for in some of these primaries. And at least in Wisconsin, we know that they took electability into account and broke late for David Crowley, and that's how he won. So polls taken 2 weeks before the election, when a bunch of people hadn't made up their minds yet, were not representative of the ultimate result. And there you go. Okay. Also want to note, Blue by 2032 is the report put out by Paul Rivera, who was writing the DNC post-election autopsy report. I can't remember if I've mentioned before, but Paul is one of my mentors. I absolutely adore him. He is brilliant. This is a 500 plus page report. It's got a lot of charts and graphs. I have not yet read the whole thing. It will take me a little time. But, this is the real autopsy report. And like with the other post-election reports that were put out, many of which I mentioned and talked about here, this is one person's take with a lot of data. And I will put the link to it in the notes. It is blueby2032.com. I encourage you to at least read kind of the first section and the conclusions, and then you can kind of look through everything at your leisure, at your 500-page leisure. Nate Silver also put out his new forecast and model for the election. Famously, Nate Silver, formerly of 538. It is very favorable to Democrats. He, like many prognosticators, weigh the quality of pollsters, whether or not they're considered a partisan polling firm, includes a bunch of, fundamentals about the makeup of the district and candidate quality and the economy and all kinds of things. So, I track all the prognosticators and models, and I've got my big spreadsheet where I do all of that. And there's about 25 races where the prognosticators really disagree. It tends to be that the Cook Report and Sabato and those tend to lag behind, if you will, some of the other models because they take other factors into consideration. They talk to the campaigns. So they tend to be a little bit more like little c conservative with their ratings. So I'm going to talk more about what I'm calling the outlier races, where the prognosticators disagree, in my Where to Give Now memo. But it's really interesting and, might point to some races that will become more on the radar for folks as we get closer to Election Day. Okay, expand the map. I'm going to put a slate from the Democratic Attorneys General Association, or DAGA, in the notes. We have a number of phenomenal Attorney General candidates running in some unusual places. Iowa, Kansas, races where we really can win. And these races are a little bit more under the radar and great use of money. AGs are obviously on the very, very front lines of fighting back against the Trump administration. Couple of quick things on 2028 has begun. AOC, she's amazing. She's so amazing. I mean, she's posting her personal story about freezing her eggs on her social media accounts. She's getting tons of blowback from like creepy Republicans who are like, well, why don't you just go have babies now? It is incredibly brave for her to do this and to help educate people about this process and to talk about, the physical and financial toll. So just again, huge props to her for being so out there and honest about so many things. Also want to raise up the Nobody's Listening newsletter. They are kind of tracking all things 2028. If you, like me, kind of love all the breadcrumbs that these candidates are leaving, I encourage you to go check that out. I also finally read Seth Maskett's book, Learning from Loss, about the 2016 election and how it influenced, in particular, the Democratic primary in 2020. Seth is a brilliant professor at University of Denver, and it provides a lot of context that I find really interesting and helpful as we are about to jump into yet another primary season where things are wide open and people are questioning things like women's electability and if we should nominate a white guy or if we should, should we nominate a Latino so we regain the Latino vote? And so recommend that one. And finally, my shout out of the week, you may see all over, in particular, Threads and some other social media accounts, a bunch of high profile people, and then their followers posting protect trans kids. And it's important every day to say that, but I live in Colorado where we have some anti-trans ballot measures. We look like the only state where we might be able to defeat these this cycle. So if this is something you care about, and it's something we all should care about because these issues and these ballot measures in particular would impact not only trans kids, but all kids in limiting all kinds of healthcare, making schools check children's genitals before they can play in sports. I encourage you to go give to Families Not Politics and help protect all kids, but help protect some trans kids in Colorado. So I'll put that link in the notes too. Okay, this was a long one. Have a great week. Bye.